I'm Eric Jacobson. I'm a business growth specialist with iConnection. And we set up the Grow Association's kind of sister brand about a year and a half ago. And the focus of that brand is helping associations, nonprofits predominantly, to help them grow and to support those organizations. Today's content is actually valuable for everybody. It's going to have that focus, but it will also be content that would be good just for business people in general, and just anyone who's kind of interested in how marketing automation platforms, even as consumers, understanding this, you can understand how people use your information. Nancy, not from the legal standpoint, but from the aspect of how businesses use these platforms for marketing and understanding their customers. Okay. So iConnection, Grow Associations, we've been in business, actually we're going into our 22nd year. We have 15 full-time employees. We just added one on Monday as well. So, and our staff consists of programmers, marketers, predominantly marketers, programmers, and designers. And our designer does not only websites, but also premium content, Google Ads. Some of the things we're going to talk about would be what our designer would create. So some of the challenges that organizations have is, as well as businesses, is identifying who specifically visits your website. So a lot of times organizations rely on Google Analytics or possibly social media statistics, if they even look at them. And the reality is people are so busy, they generally, what I find, almost never look at their Google Analytics. But even if you're looking at that, you're only looking at trends. You're not getting down to the individual level. Who specifically? So I don't know that Mary Lynn came to my website and that she specifically went to certain pages without marketing automation. And I'll explain how marketing automation can help you identify that. And once you know who specifically visits your website, that allows you from a marketing standpoint to do lots of things that we'll talk about. Determining which specific ads, posts, and tactics are effective. So you can identify through Google Analytics and social media stats what's effective, but you can't typically trace it to the specific person who has interacted with that content. So that if that specific person becomes a member, donor, board member, as a result of your marketing, you don't know that using the traditional tools that are available outside of marketing automation. So, good morning, Heidi. Can you hear okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. So we just got started. So other challenges that organizations have is the amount of manual effort that's required to just do marketing in general. So a lot of organizations have constant contact. You can set up, and I realize organizations may have tools that are like marketing automation platforms. So what I'm going to talk about today are concepts that can be used with any platform. But typically the manual effort required is pretty significant. So marketing automation can help with that. Generic messaging, without identifying who specifically visits your website, what their interests are, most organizations fall into the trap of just generic content that everybody gets and that doesn't resonate with everybody. So, your constituents have different interests than your board members, than your members if you're an association. So being able to produce targeted messaging can make your marketing more effective and produce higher conversion rates. And then, as I said, that inability to segment visitors. So these are some of the challenges that we'll be talking about. By the way, Heidi, if you have questions during the presentation, jump in. Otherwise, I'll have questions and answers at the end. So I'm going to start with the inbound methodology. So this is more of a business statistic, but less than 40% of website visitors are ready to take action on your website. They're in the beginning stages of their buyer's journey. And we're going to talk about buyer's journey. So what is inbound methodology? It's growing your organization by building lasting relationships with consumers, prospects, and customers. And it's about allowing them to work their way through their buyer's journey till they're ready to take an action, whether it's to reach out and have a conversation with you, whether it's to pick up the phone and call you, to make a donation, or whatever. I think a lot of times organizations feel, oh, people will come, they'll look at my amazing homepage and hit the donate button. Well, unless this is maybe follow up to an event, they're not ready to do that when they hit your homepage. They're going to go through a process to kind of check out the legitimacy of your organization, make sure that their donation dollars are going to be used wisely. And some of that gets into the whole website creation, which I'm not going to get into today. So in the Grow Associations library last month, I did a webinar on improving conversion rates, and it talks about some of the things you can do to your website to improve those. So this, in the buyer's journey, and this comes from HubSpot. HubSpot is one of the kind of founders of inbound marketing. They have a marketing automation platform. I'm going to use some of their content, but that's not the platform that I'm going to walk you through. And I'll explain why later. So kind of the three phases is attract, engage, and delight. And I'll walk through each of those, but those are the stages that a consumer, a prospect will use as they interact with your organization. So you have strangers, prospects, customers, and then promoters. Promoters are someone who, they can be influencers, but it's that delight stage. So once you have a new member, a new donor, a new board member, delighting them, basically providing satisfaction, is a stage of the buyer's journey that I think a lot of people overlook. Okay, so in the attract stage, and in each stage of the buyer's journey, different types of content is going to be more effective. So in the attract stage, these are the types of marketing tools that you want to be using. So blogs can be very effective. Social media, SEO, to drive people who are doing keyword search. Really good content. A lot of times people get hung up in social media as to what is it that they should be posting. So we had St. Patrick's Day this week. And I will tell you that almost every business and every organization has some kind of Happy St. Patrick's Day message. And that content, because everybody's doing it, if you're Irish, okay, maybe, but most of your audience really doesn't care about that unless it's funny. The kind of content that gets shared is content that's funny, which is always in the eye of the beholder, or something interesting or educational. And those kind of generic holiday ads or pieces of content really don't do anything for your organization. And really good blog content, what we call content of value, that gets shared in social media. So things like the top 5 things to consider when donating to XYZ or this type of organization, or what to look for when joining a professional organization, association, that kind of thing. So attract, engage, and delight. So I mentioned delight earlier. So, having content that easily allows your influencers, people who are already engaged with your organization, to help share the good things that you do. So what is a marketing automation platform? I'm going to use MAP for short. What it allows you to do is create a profile of the visitor who comes to your website and their interactions. Now, unlike Google Analytics, it doesn't just happen. they will need to engage with your website, and you need to capture their email to be able to identify them specifically. And I'm going to get into how people are willing to do that. In the green bar here, it talks about some of the marketing automation platforms. I mentioned HubSpot. SharpSpring, which was recently bought out by Constant Contact, is our main go-to marketing automation platform. Pardot is another one of the more well-known platforms. Marketo is another, and there are many of them out there. Salesforce and Pardot are pretty closely connected. HubSpot is really more of a marketing automation platform before it's a CRM, customer relationship management system. Same with SharpSpring, whereas Pardot is more of a CRM system, and then the marketing automation kind of was added later. So it's just kind of how these companies started. So their strengths may be different. So a lot of business organizations might be using Salesforce, so they might be using Pardot. First of all, again, this is a business statistic, but companies that excel at lead nurturing, so working someone through that buyer's journey, generate 50% more sales-ready leads at 33% lower cost. Conversion rates with websites that employ marketing automation are significantly higher than any other website. Most conversion rates on a regular website are 0.5% to maybe 1%. Websites with marketing automation platforms built in and using inbound methodology can have conversion rates as high as 3%. It doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have a lot of visitors to your website, growing from 0.5% to 3% helps stretch your marketing dollars quite significantly. These are really, really good platforms and good methodology to use. So some of the benefits of marketing automation platforms: it increases web traffic and expands your presence beyond your website. How does it do that? If you're creating great premium content, that content can be put out in other places out on the web, driving people back to your website. Whereas most organizations, associations, and nonprofits focus so much on their website with a little bit of Facebook that they're not really getting that benefit that the marketing automation platform would provide. It identifies specific website visitors and then the actions that they take. I've mentioned the conversion rates. Another reason why the conversion rates are improved is that people aren't leaving your website as quickly because you're providing content that's satisfying their quest for information. Customer retention. So having content of value improves trust and engagement with your audience. It also significantly helps with search engine optimization. The way Google has changed over the last couple of years, the way that people interact with your website, the longer they stay on a page, the more they engage with it, the better and more effective your SEO results will be. Cost efficiencies: you have one tool rather than many, many different tools to accomplish all of your marketing efforts and automation. As I mentioned earlier, the ability to track back a specific marketing automation to someone who becomes a member of your association, who donates to your website, who becomes a volunteer. If you can identify that specific person all the way through till they become a member, you can track that whole marketing effort. Whereas right now, I assume that's not something you can do. So some of the ways you can, some of the things you can automate: new member onboarding, and I'm going to have some examples of these. Prospect or donor nurturing efforts. Renewal. So if you're an association, you can automate parts of your renewal process with reminders and directing people through that process. Educational content, event reminders. A lot of organizations have events, and you can automate that pre, during, and post-event activity. Renewals, I mentioned. Testimonials, reviews, those kinds of things. Every business and every organization does not generally have enough reviews or testimonials. And honestly, it's because it takes effort to do that. How many of you get a review request and you have the greatest intentions of doing it and you don't do it? What I find is if I get a reminder 2 or 3 times, I'm generally going to do it. But if I only get one request, I generally don't do it. Identifying who is a hot prospect. So if you can identify that, Joan Smith has come to your website 5 times and engaged with 4 pieces of content or whatever, that might be someone that you want to reach out to. So it helps you identify from the sea of website visitors who maybe need some attention. And then automating thought leadership. You can create evergreen content that can be sent out or posted over time. Building segmented lists based on interests. Wouldn't it be great to send, donors, and I realize some of you can do this in your constant contact or whatever, but that may be if you've identified them. But if you can have the website identify someone's specific interest, you can have the system direct that content to that person's interest. Mapping out what happens. So this is a member journey example. So a prospect visits the website and they complete a landing page form. At that point, they're in your marketing automation platform. You're then going to drip market content to them over time. They then go through their buyer's journey. They're ready to become a member. All of this is automated. You can then send them a welcome email. You could create a welcome video from the executive director. Send them emails with links to resources for new members, emails with upcoming event invitations, training programs, and then various follow-ups all the way through to the renewal process, and automate that. And one of the great things about marketing automation that you'll see is that you can create workflows with either or logic. So if someone renews before they've gotten through all of your renewal marketing automation, you can stop the rest of the emails because they've already renewed. So it allows you really to create a kind of holistic approach to managing the member journey. Event communication, I think this is pretty straightforward. In the interest of time, I'm going to kind of zip through this. But one of the things you can do is post-event surveys. So after they've gone through the event, getting some follow-up feedback, and then even populating your list for the next event. So how do you get contact information? So calls to action on your website. Right now, most of you have calls to action that are probably donate. If I had to guess, most of you have that on your website. So as I mentioned earlier, people may not be ready to do that. So this is a business example, but it could be yours as well. But here, this is a call to action to get an ebook. You can use these for white papers. You could use this for many, many different things that would be relevant to your audience. And this is the whole thing I talked about earlier, content of value. Showing a couple of pages from an ebook and only asking for a little bit of information. The least you need, I mean, number one, you need email, first name, last name, and then you don't even need more than that. One of the things that marketing automation platforms do is they progressively add information. So if you get someone's name and email address, you never have to ask that again. The next time they come to the website, you can ask them one more piece of information that you don't have about their interests, about a demographic piece of information. So the whole key is creating some content. It could be something very simple, but something that your audience wants and would be willing to give their email for. And we've seen cases with content conversion rates on a landing page like that up to 35% if the content is really good. And that's kind of unheard of in a conversion rate. So it's really thinking about what is it that people would want. This is an example of different fields that you could ask for. One of the things I really want to talk about is this progressive profiling. That's what I was just describing, where over time you get more information from someone. So you don't keep having to ask them for the same information. You build upon what you gain each time. Okay. So again, here's another example of premium content where it's an ebook. We show them a couple of pages, and then in order to get the rest of it, they fill out the form. Landing pages do not typically have website navigation. It's one of the things Carrie and I I'm on the board of the North Penn YMCA. Carrie is a staff member. We were talking about this recently. So when you have a landing page, there's one objective, and that's for someone to read the information, fill out the form. By having website navigation, there's an opportunity for them to leave the landing page, and it decreases the chance they're going to fill it out. Okay, now we're getting into, this is a snapshot of an actual marketing automation platform page. I'm going to have to go through kind of quickly. So this is a contact section. So these are people that have come to the website and have filled out pieces of information. Now you can upload into the marketing automation platform lists that you have. So lists of contacts. If you have them in Constant Contact or some other platform, you can upload them into the marketing automation platform so that if they come to your website, you'll then be able to track their activity as long as you have their email. So if most of you probably already have existing lists of members, donors, etc., you can upload them and you can categorize them when you upload them into the system. Okay, I'm going to skip that. You can assign these contacts to people within your organization. So that's called the lead owner. A lead score is if someone keeps coming to the website and does certain activities, you can increase the lead score level, and you can then get an email notification when someone's lead score gets to a certain point. So like I was saying earlier, if you have someone who comes and checks out, our mission, and then they check out, how we help, certain pages that make it seem like they might be a potential donor, and you define what your lead score characteristics are. So you define those, and when someone hits that lead score, you can be notified or go in and look at it, and it gives you marketing intelligence that you don't currently have. So it's a really nice tool. And this is an example. You can add or subtract. For example, we subtract if someone's not in the United States because we don't want to deal with them. That's actually not true. We just got a new customer from Dublin, Ireland, who has a solar panel company. She's been there 20 years. She's actually American, moved over 20 years ago and has a business there. So we're working with her. This is a contact record. And so someone came to the website. The marketing automation platform will fill in a lot of this demographic information based on LinkedIn, other information that may have been put in from the form, or information that we put in. So that's what's over here. I'm not going to be able to go through all of this, but this is an example of in contact records, a lot of things you can do. You can send emails right from here. Smart mail would be templates that are already made that you create, or there's some that are included. And you could send a one-off email to a contact just by hitting that button. That you can't read that. That's a new task. So I could create a new task that I need to reach out to Kevin. And I actually could create that task for someone on my team to follow up. So if I've got a development director and I see as a marketing person that Kevin needs to be reached out to, I can assign a task to someone else on my team to reach out to him. This is an example of an email template. Smart Mail, this is the task assignment. I know I'm going through this quickly. One of the great things in a contact record is you can see the whole life cycle of actions between you and that person. So you can see that they filled out a form on a specific date. We changed the lead owner. That's not that important right now. An email was sent. So I can connect this to my Gmail or Outlook, and this will actually track the email. List of the website pages they visited. I received an email from that contact. So great, really great information that I can act upon. So these are all the pages that this person went to on that specific date on my website and how long they spend there. They spent 56 minutes. That's a good prospect. This actually tracks those emails. So you know how a lot of times you can't find emails in your Outlook or Gmail? These are now assigned. I can go into that specific client contact record and find my emails. These are different list groups that I've created. So again, you can create those in the marketing automation platform. Email templates I mentioned. And just like in Constant Contact, they can be personalized based on the data within the marketing automation platform. It's just some more examples of email templates. Email templates can be used kind of for generic or for marketing purposes or sales purposes. And when I say sales purposes, every one of you has sales as part of what you do. So once a year you go out and you talk to your top donors. You could have specific emails for them. You could have emails that include videos. Before your team goes out to talk to that donor, you can have an email that goes out ahead of time and kind of preps that donor or potential donor, if you're doing corporate, meeting with corporate organizations, prep them for your team to visit. And we did a process like that for a business, and the amount of time their salespeople had to spend with their customer was shortened by about 15 minutes, and their conversion rate improved just as a result of that pre-visit communication. So it's something you might want to think about as a tactic for your team. In marketing automation platforms, as I mentioned earlier, you can set up visual workflows. So if someone does something, it takes them down a path of activity, marketing activity, and if they do something else, they'll go down a different path. And you can set up delays. So this could be, if they do one thing, send them this email, and then wait 3 days and send them another. If they don't open it, go down this path. If they open it, go down this path. I love this because it just makes so much sense. It allows you to set it up once, kind of set it and forget it. And it really saves a lot of time. It takes time to set it up, but once you set it up, it's done. So again, just another example of gated triggers, different actions. Opportunities, we use this in business. You might be able to use this, and you can define what each of these are, but it's working people through your sales process. So if it's a potential corporate donor, you might have email outreach, then you have a phone call, then you have a site visit, then you have a follow-up. You can physically click and drag this person or business to the next stage of your sales process. And you can also set up triggers and reminders. So this really helps improve your sales process. So, wow, I went through that quickly, but I could see we were running out of time. I'm available. I do free consultations, free conversations. And in my email, I have a book time with me button. If you just want to chat about anything that we've spoken about or anything related to marketing or websites, I don't charge for that. I'm happy and enjoy those conversations.
So, Eric, what is the general investment for a small to buy one of these?
That's a great question. So one of the reasons we shifted from HubSpot to SharpSpring is because HubSpot's costs were pretty dramatic. And their model was based on the number of contacts. So if you have a lot of contacts, that can be cost prohibitive. I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things that HubSpot has done in the last couple of years is they do have a low cost or free marketing hub and CRM hub. I don't know a lot about it because we've shifted away from them, but we have a customer who uses their like $50 a month marketing plan, but there are restrictions. It's not going to have everything that I showed you, but it would be a great way of you could even do the HubSpot free to get your hands into the pot of how it works. For SharpSpring, the software has to be integrated into your website. Your developer can do that for you. We charge $500, it's $500 a month. As an agency, we're able to provide that to our customers as part of our marketing engagements. And I'm not quite sure what some of the marketing automation platform companies have like an onboarding fee. When someone works with us, they don't get charged that. We do that for them. So again, something you're gonna have to explore a little bit. There are many platforms, but if you just want to get started, I'd recommend the HubSpot free or their minimal plans that are like $50 a month.
Eric, this is Carrie. I just had a question about, I noticed on the list it had said Constant Contact had something called SpringSpot.
SharpSpring. So
SharpSpring.
Constant Contact bought SharpSpring within the last year.
Oh, okay. And that's a little bit, is that website based or is it still an email based type of platform?
SharpSpring?
Yeah.
SharpSpring is web based.
Okay.
Just like HubSpot, you would integrate it into your website. So when I say integrate into your website, predominantly that is, well, I can't say I'm not a programmer, but
yeah,
it's generally connecting it. It's the forms that you need to get people to interact with.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know, it wasn't so much a question. I was just going to type into the chat your, great advice on kind of dipping your toe into a HubSpot or something, to just get the hang of it as an association. I worked with an association who was a global organization. They were quite large, but they really bit off a lot more than they could chew, diving into a Marketo, which is very robust, very, significant expense. And they never really realized all the bells and whistles that they were paying for because it was just beyond their scope of what they really needed to, automate what, their marketing and to manage their CRM. But so I guess in terms of a question in terms of, so if they make, for associations that make a decision, what's the best things they can do in the first 30 days to, have success with their marketing automation platform?
Great question. Before I answer that, for Raquel and Pam, who came in at different times, this will be available in the Grow Association's library. So I would say I also hear the same thing about Pardot, that it's a little bit more robust than what is needed. So success, there's the technological aspect of integrating it into the website. You'll need assistance from a developer. It's not, depending on what you're doing, particularly like the HubSpot free, it's not that complex, but you do have to integrate the code into the website. So it's not a big project. But that would be step one. I think step two, and this is just general marketing. I was going to make this point, but I kind of ran out of time, is that you need to think about think about your audience and what is it that they really value. Create that content of value. And you don't need a ton of content, but having a couple of really good pieces that someone is willing to invest their contact information in, that's one of the most important things you can do. I'm a big fan for blog articles and for this type of content of guides, top 3 to 5 to 10 reasons for something. You could do, the problem is case studies is too far along in the buyer's journey. That's for later in the buyer's journey. So I don't know that someone, is willing to give their email for that. It has to be something that they're willing to invest. And I say, giving your email away in today's world, they have to know that you're not going to spam them. So once you get someone in your system, you don't want to over communicate with them. Content of value, that's the buzzword. And it's definitely a learning process. So, you crawl, walk, run with this if you're not familiar with marketing automation platforms. And what do they do?
Insurance. So it's an insurance platform for agencies that sell insurance policies. So there is a marketing need for insurance agencies.
And there's some great things you can do to improve your sales process. And, as I mentioned to the other people on the call, every organization, whether it's business, nonprofit, association, there's that sales aspect.
Right.
And there's a lot of noise out there in marketing. So anything you can do to be more targeted, if you're a nonprofit, you're competing, you don't like to think of competitors, but you absolutely have competitors for people's donations. So how can you delight your existing, donors and board members? And how can you attract new donors? And marketing automation can definitely help with that. And the whole point of today is it can make your lives easier by automating some of the administrative things that your team is doing.